Evelyn here, and Luna. Welcome back to this, my very own little creative corner of the internet here on YouTube, and to my third Halloween here on the channel. Can't quite believe that, my friends, but thank you so much for all of your continued love and support for this little channel. Please, if you haven't done so already, hit that all important subscribe button for me. But I hear you ask, Evelyn, what are you creating for Halloween this year? Well, my friends, I'm going to take a little trip outside of the ordinary costume making this year. I've been thinking quite a lot about how to avoid waste in my wardrobe, and although I absolutely love costumes and cosplay, quite a lot of those costumes, my friends, end up languishing in the back of our wardrobes. So this year, I'm going to take a little different tact when it comes to creating something for Halloween, and I'm going to create something that's costume inspired. And to be precise, it's going to be inspired by Red Riding Hood. I'm going to create a vintage style cape coat with raglan style sleeves that's perfect for Red Riding Hood. So I'm going to create it using the most gorgeous remnant of red scuba crepe, and I'm going to line it with that gorgeous velvet fabric from my recent sewing and knitting plans video. So without further ado, my friends, let's get to some Halloween costume inspired creations. Let's go. So let's get to some pattern drafting, my friends, beginning by grabbing your jersey bodice and sleeve blocks, as I have here, helped of course by the lovely Luna. If you have yet to make your own blocks to your own measurements, my friends, there's a card above and a link in the description box too. This time I wanted a closer fitting cape garment to wear over t-shirts as a layering piece, as hot flushes are no joke, my friends. Being a cape too, this garment will be even more menopause friendly for you. For the hood, I've grabbed the pattern from my very first cape tutorial here on the channel. Yep, card above and link below. So let's get drafting using these mini versions to show you. I began by placing my bodice pieces so that they meet along the shoulder seams, then placing the sleeve block into the arm side like so. This will help to draw in those raglan sleeve style lines. Drawing lines from the outer edges of the sleeve cap to the neckline edge of the bodice front and back pieces, plotting these lines on the neckline at the approximate same distance from the centre back and centre front. I also took this opportunity to place notches to denote the front and back of my sleeves, a single notch for the front and a double notch for the back. Cutting along those new style lines and adding paper where needed, my pieces looked like this. Now, can you spot any issues at this point, my friends? Obviously, I'm technically time travelling right now in this voiceover, and yes, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But can you guess? Stay tuned, friends. Moving on, it was then time to add that cape swooshiness. Grabbing my front bodice piece and placing it on some more pattern paper, extending the centre front edge by my neckline to finished cape length measurement. I then did the same thing on the pattern side before plotting the same neckline to finished length measurement out from the neckline all along, creating a curve for my cape front that looks like this. Lovely and swooshy. In orange pen, you can also see that I've added 1.5 inches to the centre front edge of the pattern to create a button band. The same process minus that button band extension is then repeated, yes, you've guessed it, on the back bodice piece too. is my finished mini pattern, including the cape hood. Now, to check my already drafted cape hood would fit this new pattern, I walked it along the neckline of my 3 new pattern pieces, the 2 bodice pieces and the sleeve, to check the fit, and happily, yes, it was right. Since the 2 block patterns used here and my hood are drafted using my body measurements, this should be the case and the pieces should fit well, but it never hurts to check before cutting into that fabric and spending your very precious time on creating. Pattern sorted, it was time to get cutting out my 2 chosen fabrics, and this red scuba crepe is just perfect for this Red Riding Hood inspired look. My pain levels have been rather high lately, so it was makeshift pattern weights, a washable marker and plenty of patience for this task. It's all about making your creations work for you, my friends, but truthfully, I am still working on my patience and not getting upset and frustrated at my limitations. Truth be told, my friends, I was very frustrated and upset this week, but I persisted. Pieces all cut out, the sewing could finally commence, beginning with the sleeve seams. Now, because this fabric was a remnant, I had a really small limited amount left, so my outer fabric back bodice had to be cut in 2 pieces, adding a seam allowance to the centre back to be able to do so. Luckily, I could fit all of the pieces on by adding this centre back seam. Then it was time to insert these weird raglan sleeves, and I found that the easiest way to do this was to pin one side of the sleeve at a time, then placing a pin at the bottom of the arm side right where the seam allowance of the bodice piece would be. Stay tuned, my friends, because I have a lovely capture of this on my lining layer coming up. Sleeves inserted, the remaining side seam can then be sewn. Strangely, I did the side seams last on my outer fabric, but first on my lining. There was no real reason for this, my friends, it just happened that way. And my cape then looked like this. Time for that lining layer, repeating the same steps. The hood was next, sewing each pair of hoods together along the curved outer edge. Before attaching them to their bodice counterparts along the neckline, leaving a small gap in the centre of the lining neckline to allow me to turn the garment right side out when the 2 layers are sewn together. Feeling much less than 100%, my motivation was really flagging by this point, so I popped my creation onto the lovely Betty for a pick-me-up. And well, my friends, that pick-me-up really worked, because I quickly got to pinning and stitching the 2 layers together all along the outer edge and around that hood. Cape placed on Betty, I gave myself a really big pat on the back for not giving up. Okay, my friends, so It's the next day and it's still quite dark here in the Scottish Highlands, although it's already gone 8 o'clock. It's still incredibly dark, but this is what my cape is looking like so far on the gorgeous Betty. Now, my friends, can you spot the error? Not so much an error, but a step that I missed. So, as you'll know, my friends, if you've watched the beginning of this video, I drafted this cape using my jersey block rather than my bodice block. Jersey blocks, my friends, have little to no ease. So, although I wanted this to be a closer fitting cape, and I've tried it on and the fit is great, even though I added that space for a button band, look at where it's closing on Betty. Not a lot of space for buttons. So when it comes to a closure, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board. However, I absolutely love this design, and if I show you it from the back, it's just so cute. I love it. But definitely when I make another one, I'll definitely add some ease to that pattern by dropping the, oh, there we go, by dropping the arm size slightly and then adding some ease to the raglan sleeve by bringing it from the wrist up to that lowered arm side to give it a little bit more ease. Of course, the other thing you could do is just use your standard bodice and sleeve block to draft this rather than the jersey block, and then there would already be ease in it because there's ease in our bodice blocks. So yes, the moral of the story and the lesson to learn here, my friends, is to take your time and not get overly excited and draft really quickly, which, yes, I tend to do quite a bit. So the next step on this gorgeous creation is to trim all of the seam allowances, because as you can see, I'm not getting perfect corners there, and I also need to sew up that gap that I left in the back of the neckline to be able to turn it, and then I need to think about closures. But she's looking pretty cool, isn't she? And I really love the flowers inside this. Really fits with the woods and the Red Riding Hood theme. So there we go. So friends, these were the buttons that were going to go on the Red Riding Hood style cape. However, yes, not going to work with buttons now, although look at this. It's the little things. Look at how well these gorgeous Smarty buttons match the fabric. So they're definitely going back in the button stash. But it was back to the drawing board, and I looked through all of my supplies and found this. This, my friends, is a frog closure, and you can see one side has a knot and the other has a loop. And these are traditionally hand stitched on garments as a closure, and I think it looks really beautiful on that red fabric, especially since my lining is in that gorgeous black flower velvet. So that's the new plan, my friends. New closure chosen, some much needed clipping of seam allowances was needed, and since I really was not feeling great again, it was a task for a snuggle up with my Luna. The good days really have been few and far between of late, my friends, and it's making me quite emotional saying that out loud, but I really did persist with this project, and I'm so glad I did, because wait until you see the reveal, my friends. It just goes to show persistence really does pay off. And just look at all the trimmings. Please do not be tempted to skip this step, my friends, because trimming those seam allowances really does make such a difference to your finished garments. Then that lining neckline needed to be invisibly hand stitched closed before I pinned the edges of my cape, carefully rolling the lining to the inside of the garment before I top stitched at 1/2 inch. This was instead of understitching. I often either do understitching or top stitching, There really is no rhyme or reason to it, my friends. I just go with what I feel like with the particular project. All that was left was stitching on that gorgeous closure, which was the perfect snuggle activity. It's reveal time. Wow, my friends, I am so glad that I did not give up this week because I absolutely adore this cape coat. Now, there is one thing that I would probably change in the future, my friends, and that would be the closure, because although I absolutely love how elegant and classy it looks, my goodness, is this a difficult closure to take on and off with my dexterity issues? My goodness. It also doesn't drape quite right in certain places because, and this is just terrible, my friends, I had to cut quite a few pieces against the grain of this fabric or even on the bias because I really didn't have very much left of that red scuba crepe. But I love this design so much that I'm definitely going to give it a go again, but this time with more fabric, so there'll be less fabric Tetris and, yes, with more ease, my friends, so I can create a button closure. But apart from those issues, what a success! The biggest take I'm taking from this week's project, my friends, is that I really did not give up. Even when I noticed that I hadn't added any ease and that I wasn't going to be able to do the button closure that I had thought about, I didn't give up. I kept going. I persisted, and the finished project I absolutely love, with or without its teething problems. Just goes to show, my friends, don't give up. Believe in yourself and your abilities. But until next time, you take care, my wonderful friends, and I'll see you next week. Bye.